If I was starting as a clinical teaching fellow again, here is exactly what I would want to know. No fluff, just what matters. Hello, if you're new to the channel, my name is Dr. Cara Bedzina. I'm an academic GP working in the United Kingdom, currently doing my PhD. And this video is the first 5 of my top 10 tips when it comes to making the most out of your CTF year. Whether you'd like to improve your teaching skills or get involved in research, I've got you covered. We're gonna start with tips that will help you hit the ground running. Let's get to the first one. Top tip number 1 is speak to the person that you're replacing. CTF roles across the country vary. Even within the same region, no CTF or entry-level medical education role is the same. And that means the best person to tell you about the job that you're going to do is the person that's leaving. So if you don't have an official handover booked or any sort of induction, it's even more important that you reach out to the current CTF and book a meeting to catch up. They'll be able to tell you about all the things that went well over the year, the responsibilities that they had as a CTF, and also the things they could have done differently. You'll be able to learn from their mistakes, but also go into the job with a clear idea about what you're gonna get into. This will help you plan and figure out how you can make the most out of your job. My second top tip is understand the teaching calendar. Most CTF posts are involved with undergraduate medical education, and we know that the year has ebbs and flows. So at some times you're going to be a lot busier in the run-up to exams, and then at other times when there are the typical Christmas holidays or Easter holidays, things will be a lot easier. It's a good idea for you to figure out where these ebbs and flows are because it'll help you plan around your job. Unlike any other post that you've had in clinical medicine, there are quieter times. This isn't to say that they're quiet completely, but quieter times, and there are busier times. And if you've got a good idea about when those times are, you can make plans about what you want to do in that time and also make the most out of your post. So figure out what the teaching calendar is like and also what your busiest days are, especially if you're working full-time. My third top tip is be clear about what you want. So after you've gotten a little bit of a better idea about what your job is going to involve in terms of roles and responsibilities, and you've got some lay of the land when it comes to your schedule throughout the year, it's a good time to sit back and think, okay, I know what I'm in for. I know what is expected of me to a degree. What do I want to get out of this? And this is a really important question. Now, you might be the type of person who just wants to go in and be like, hey, I'm gonna take it as it comes. I'm gonna figure out as I go along. I'll see what opportunities I get and take it from there. And that's fair enough. But what I would say is over the past 5 years, I have mentored and seen colleagues and friends who have done entry-level medical education posts. And what I hear from those people who usually just go into it being like, I'll see what happens, is they come out the other side saying, I'm not sure I made the most of my time. And this is why it's important to take a pause before you start and think, what are my goals here? Now, if you want to do this in a structured format, I would recommend using the Academy of Medical Educators Professional Standards to do so. They outline the different standards that are involved in a medical education role for clinicians, and they can give you ideas of areas that you'd like to develop in, whether that's medical education research and scholarship, or medical education leadership or assessment. But you can have a look at that calendar and figure out, well, these are the things I'd like to develop. These are the things I would like to try out. And that means when you start and you have that initial meeting with your line manager or with the person who is responsible for mentoring you throughout the year, you can already show them the things that you're interested in and you can plan out the year accordingly. As I said, there are ebbs and flows, and what you don't want to do is miss out on a conference deadline that's happening because you weren't aware of the fact that that happens around Christmas time. And that means that if you want to be thinking about submitting an educational evaluation or a very small scale pilot project or study, you gotta get going. My fourth top tip that sort of aligns with that third top tip is do a training needs analysis. And you're like, how the heck am I gonna do that? Well, I'll say go back to the Academy's professional standards and look at what is listed there. And have a think to yourself, this is something I think I can confidently do. A lot of people who go into a medical education post usually already have some kind of teaching experience, especially because in 2025 they've become uber competitive. So have a look at the different elements that we think about when we're talking about medical education and say, this is something I feel really confident in, this is something I could do a little bit about. There's a lot of self-directed learning in medical education, and this is especially important if you're coming to the post without much educational experience, because what you don't want to do is feel overwhelmed by all the teaching needs and requirements without having an idea of where you'd like to develop and grow. Remember, this is an opportunity for you to improve and develop your skills as a medical educator. My fifth top tip is ask early about whether you are going to get financial support or whether they'll sponsor a PGCert or higher qualification. This is something that some programs in the United Kingdom do. They pay for their CTFs to get a PGCert in MedEd or a higher diploma and master's. For example, in my case, I was doing a master's in medical education. The year I was doing my entry-level medical education role, I was in my diploma year, and my employer covered the fees of my diploma. And this was really, really helpful. I think it's important to think about this seriously because it's not often in your clinical career that you'll have an organization that's ready to cover your studying expenses. And the thing that most contributed to my development as a medical educator and really helped me become aware of the theory behind the madness, behind the educational madness, was doing my master's in MedEd. It was one of the best decisions I made. And so I would think very hard and long before I pass up the opportunity to do a PGCert in MedEd that is covered by the institution. You want to think about this early on and commit to it early on because you don't want to miss any deadlines for the scholastic year. So, those are my top 5 tips. Oops, I'm doing 10 there. My top 5 tips. First 5 of 10 tips when it comes to hitting the ground running and starting your clinical teaching fellowship post. I think CTFs are awesome. They are the bedrock of medical education. They bring so much enthusiasm and ideas, and I absolutely love working with them. And my CTF year, because I wasn't technically a CTF, was one of the best years in my career. I made so many friends. I was doing work that I loved, and the bit that I enjoyed the most was facilitating the development of our medical students. So if you're watching this video, I imagine you are planning on doing CTF or you're starting in a couple of weeks. Good luck. If you have any other questions or concerns, pop them in the comments below. Otherwise, you can see more MedEd videos. One thing I didn't mention is actually I post a lot of videos about entry-level medical education theory and tips and tricks. So check that out here. Otherwise, I'll see you later. And thanks again to Dr. LJ Edwards who contributed to this video. Ciao!